Welcome to So Very Easy. My name is Laura, and today I would like to introduce to you a new add-on for Electric Quilt. Now, Electric Quilt is a program where you are able to design quilt patterns. What's great about it is you can do all sorts of things in this program. You can change sizes, add fabrics, put fabrics around, change colors, just go by colors, go by fabrics that have collections that you're able to get. You can change sizes, print out everything you need, and even get how much fabric you're going to need. And now there is a new addition. It is Kaleidoscope 2. So here is the new collection. It is a Kaleidoscope 2, and it has a lot of different things that we are going to be able to do with it. So the Kaleidoscope 2 is an add-on. So we already have to have the electric quilt, but we can download it for Windows, we can do it for a Mac, and it happens to be on sale right now, which is really great. And there are so many different designs. Not only do we have all of these collections, but within those collections, we have many patterns. We can save them to work tables, we can add them to our sketchbook. Of course, we can change the colors and change the size. So many different things we can do with them. So here's the pattern that I have chosen. I really just love these little strawberries. I think it's going to make a great table topper. So I was able to go in and decide on what size I wanted. And I'm only having one big square, and that is going to be a 17.5-inch square. I didn't add any borders, but I did have a lot of fun designing it. Once that program was put in, here was some that I have chosen, and I was able to play around with them and come up with some different things. From here, I was able to change my colors. So I downloaded my colors and my fabrics. So here are some of the fabrics that I was working with. So I was able to change these. Now the fun part is I have options now. I can choose to print the quilt. So what I will do is print out what the quilt is going to look like. I can also print out the fabric requirements. I can also choose if I'm only going to use fat quarters. It's still going to give me how much fabric I'm going to need, but this time it is giving it to me in fat quarters. I can also print out templates. I'm going to click onto that block, go into templates. I have all of these options. We can also do rotary cutting. I am going to use a foundation. Now I have already preset what I want, and I am going to print out these pages. So I'm going to be able to preview them, and the great part is I'm going to be able to move these, rotate them so that they're going to fit, and then I'm going to be able to print those out. So let me show you the papers and how this is all going to go together. So here's the printout of what this quilt is going to look like. Here are my fabric options, and I did use fat quarters, so it tells me how many fat quarters I'm going to need. And that is going to match all of this fun fabric that I have. These are just leftover pieces of fat quarters that I think will make that nice table topper. Now this quilt has these little pie shape pieces, and they are the same pieces, but I have changed the color selection. So you can see where I have that red up at the top there and the strawberry print there. So I have 4 that are going to be like this and 4 that are going to be like this piece. So I printed those out, and you can see where they're just slightly different. Now I am going to paper piece these, so I'm going to be using a newsprint that I can stitch right through. But instead of having the electric quilt print out the copies for me, I like to photocopy them. And I'll show you with this one page what I like to do. When I am stitching my fabric on, I like to stitch off of the seam, come onto the line, stitch, and then come right back off. So I'm going to add those stitch lines on my pattern. So I'm going to take all of those seams that come off of the pattern and I'm going to just draw them right through. So it has that additional line. And some of them are going to cross over, but I'm not worried about that. This is just so if I put my needle out here as I'm stitching, I just have a straight line. So I have all those additional lines just sticking out. And then on this one piece, I'm going to write my colors. Now we have to remember this piece is reversed because our fabric is going to show up on this side. So we just have to keep that in mind as we're doing it. So this block happens to be this side. So I'm going to write black, just a G. This is going to be that checked fabric. These are going to be black strawberries. This is polka dots. These are white strawberries. So I just make these marks so I know where my colors are going to be. Now I'm going to take this to the printer and I'm going to be able to print it out 4 times. So there's my original, here's my photocopy, and I did cut off just a lot of that larger extra piece. I am going to be sewing it in the order that we're supposed to. B1, B2, B3, B4, and so on. But having these additional marks just makes it a little bit easier for me. And there are a few things that I really like when I do this paper piecing. Some type of a thin plastic. I use a ruler and it has a 1/4 inch lip on it. A ruler to cut my pieces, and from there I can go. So I'm going to start with that B1. I do like to start with a bigger piece, and I could just fold that like that, turn it over, and I know that's where my first piece is going to go. I do hold it up to the light just to make sure. When I do pin, I like the flathead pins. So B1 does not need to be sewn, but I do need to sew on B2. So I'm going to be stitching between the B1 and the B2 line, which in this case, it will be this line. And that's where this little template plastic comes in. I'm going to lay it right over that line that I'm going to be stitching on. I fold it back, and the flathead pins allows me to do that fold. Then this little lip ruler fits right there along that paper. And I can trim off that 1/4 inch now. Now I'm going to be able to put on my second fabric. I know it's going to fit. I know I'm going to be stitching along that seam. So I will make sure that my pins are out of the way. And that way I don't have to remove them until I am finished that seam. The seam allowance is here, so the pins are not going to get in the way. And I will be stitching from this side of the paper. And I'm going to stitch on that B1. But I do like to start a little bit off, stitch down, and just pass a little bit, just as if we were sewing a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So here is that little stitch at the beginning. I stitch right along that line and a little bit past. You can see where those 4 pins are still in the back. Didn't need to remove them because they were not in the way. And I'm going to press it with an iron with no steam. So I have B1, B2. When I turn it over, I need to find B3. So I'm going to put that template plastic right along that stitching line. Just hold it there and just give a little tug and remove those stitches. Line that up, fold it, and if you don't have that ruler, you can use any ruler. We just want to have our 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to trim off that little bit. So now I can add on my B3. And it's marked. I need my black strawberries. But I will be pinning, so the pins are out of that seam allowance. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start off, stitch right along the line, and come right back off. There's that row of stitching. I can trim off that extra and iron that back. So I have 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to go to 4. And I'm going to continue this the same way and keep adding fabric as I go all the way around. So this is the back side, and this is going to be the front side. And when we're done, we will be able to take this and trim it right on that dotted line. This is our 1/4 inch seam allowance. Having these lines means I'm going to be able to start right here with my sewing machine. I don't have to try to come into this part. So some of these I'm going to be able to go from one side all the way off to the other. It just saves a little bit of time. Then when I trim this all down, I'm going to be able to sew it together and take out that paper. And it's all trimmed down. I'm going to have these beautiful shapes. So I have that one piece and the second piece. Then I'm going to be able to sew those pieces together. So this is going to be 1/4 of my pattern. I will now have 4 of these, and I'm going to be able to sew those 4 together and then put 2 more together. And then I'm going to sew that right together. And as I press it, I'm going to make sure all of my seams are going in one direction. So there is my kaleidoscope. I did not add the corners on. I do want this in that shape. And this little table topper is now done. I love using Electric Quilt and all of their add-ons because I'm able to change and put what is in my head on paper so that I can see what it's like. It's nice being able to rearrange things, changing the sizes, changing the colors, even just changing the fabric totally is a lot of fun to do. And I get to print out everything that I need, and I also get to know how much fabric I'm going to need. It sure saves a lot of time having to do all of the math of all the little squares and pieces that I need. Kaleidoscope too is a lot of fun, and we don't always have to make squares. I'll put some links in the description so that you can check it out. And as always, thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and I do have a newsletter. It's all free under Sew Very Easy. And be sure to make every day a spectacular day. Bye for now.